Between Thanksgiving and Christmas of 2012, I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's follicular lymphoma. And it scared the life out of both Sharon and I. I was a pretty healthy person up to that point and had never really been sick. The doctors told me that this type of cancer was not curable. I began chemotherapy in 2013, and during that time, I made preparations for end-of-life events and really began to seriously consider what was going to happen to me one way or the other. I also began to look up every scripture on healing in the Bible. And by His stripes we are healed. At the end of 2013, I had a good diagnosis that the chemotherapy had worked and that the cancer had been knocked back. And so in 2014, I had a clean bill of health. And so it was great. And I thought I'd gotten my life back. The doctors are always checking up on you. So about every 3 months, I had to go in for a checkup. In 2015, in May, they said it was back with full force, stage 4. And that it had attached itself to 85% of my body. And it was at 85% what they call disease burden. The PET scans were not very encouraging because there was black everywhere. So I began to take a new chemo drug in 2015. At the end of that year, I began to get really sick with respiratory sickness and sinuses, and so I went into April of this year and I couldn't get well. In fact, one night I was laying on the couch and I thought, this is what it feels like to die. Come to find out, I had double pneumonia, and they finally cleared that up, but when they put me in the hospital, they took me off of chemo completely. So I had nothing to fight the cancer. They were just trying to get me well and stabilize me. Well, after I got out of the hospital in May, I was being prepared by my oncologist to start a new chemoimmunotherapy trial. At UAB, I was going to be one of 5 people in Birmingham to start this trial. And it was to be very extensive, last for 3 years. So I had to make preparations so that they could do a benchmark and tell exactly where I was physically. So the last thing was 3 days of intensive data gathering. And during that time, I was very weak. All I could do, I couldn't leave the house. All I could do was sit in my chair, and the deepest prayer I could pray was, God, please help me. And I'd always sort of prided myself that I knew how to pray, that I could pray myself out of anything, and it wasn't working this time. I couldn't pray, but just cry out very weakly. And I was in my chair for 7 weeks that way. The doctor calls us in to his room, and the nurse is there, and Sharon and I are in there. And he says, do you remember what your PET scan looked like 6 months ago? And we said, yeah, it didn't look good. He said, but I'm puzzled because this is the PET scan from this morning. And he shows it to us side by side. And the cancer's almost all gone. And he said, the reason that I'm puzzled is because this happened when we took you off of the chemotherapy. He said, but I can't explain what has happened to you. And so I told him, I said, listen, I appreciate all the help that you guys have given us, and I still welcome your help. But it's obvious what has happened here, that God has touched my body, and I want to give credit where credit is due. It was another 4 weeks before I actually got on my feet. But God restored me, and now I'm up and at 'em. And I feel like I've been resurrected and I have a second chance. We all have our own ideas about and our own thoughts about how much we could take. And I've had some hard moments and hard times in my life. And I had to realize He brought me to the place where there was nothing I could do. Absolutely nothing I could do but trust Him. And I don't even know that I was doing that very well. God will allow us to get to the place where He is all that we have. That there's nothing that we can really contribute to the situation, where He wants to prove to us that He loves us and that we are in His hands, and that He will take care of us despite how we feel, despite what it looks like, despite what I think, despite how much I can believe or not believe, that He's the one that's in charge and that He does love us. And He proved it to me.